Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Supernatural Substation. I am Alyne Pustanio, your host, and I have my co-host extraordinaire with me, Bernadine Richardson. Say hey, Bernadine.
Hello, hello.
We're
Glad to be
back.
here.
Well, how are we doing today?
Well, I'm doing okay.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
doing okay. I'd rather
yeah,
just pass over this day. I'm doing okay though, with personal stuff. We had that terrible wreck and everything in our area, but anyway, we're not gonna belabor the point. We have another good show for you guys tonight, and our guest is going to be Misti Gaither, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about her in a little while. But we are back here to talk about the paranormal, spooky, anything to do with the unexplained. So we hope you listen and stay tuned for our great guest tonight. So Bernadine, last week we were talking about Johnny Thunder's room and
yes.
the investigation that we did there last week, I mean on Halloween. And you were asking me about the demon that was in the room after we did the investigation. And I was like, I thought that they were having problems with something before that. But I realized, and this is just to set the record straight, that the demon got loose out of that room after we did our investigation. So that's
Yeah,
when it went all over the hotel and was going and aggravating people in other rooms. Because I remembered after we had our show, I remember the girl that worked there calling me and asking me, "What did y'all do? What did you do?"
mm,
And I was like, "We didn't do anything. We just made Johnny go." And she's like, "Well, now there's something going on," and it chased some people out of that room. And then it was somewhere upstairs in another guest room, and they left like at 2 o'clock in the morning because of what was going on in their room. And I have not really kept in touch with her, so I really don't know. But hey, if you want to stay in a haunted place, it's the St. Peter Guest House. It may be changed; they may call it something else, but it's at the corner of St. Peter and what is it, St. Anne or Toulouse? Anyway, you can look it up. It's definitely haunted. So, but no particular room on this because it apparently is a demon that moves around. So, thanks to us. So
yeah.
tonight, um, I guess we were talking. I was on Misty's show. She has a YouTube show called Quest, and it's true crime and the paranormal, and she'll tell us all about it. But we were talking about the upstairs lounge, which is how we met, and that's that's basically what brought us all together. In fact, today I was talking to somebody who was doing my hair about ta we need a drum in the back. Um, who failed miserably at it, and we were talking about. I was telling her about the upstairs and how we basically got in touch with Misty and met Misty, and it was just by. It seemed like by chance. Remember, I mean, you did the investigation, and then we were kind of looking for who we would talk to, in the community that we could go to with the evidence and to get the story told. You remember that?
Yeah, I think spirits and spirit guides put people together and link them up to get what they need done, to get messages across.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right, and it all went pretty. It just sort of happened, like we bumped into each other looking for the same thing.
Right.
So I know we're going to talk more about that, but the haunting, the place is still haunted, and don't I often say don't believe ghost hunters because they didn't solve that crime or anything, but it brought some great people into our life, and we were able to get something done. So that's something special that we share with our guest tonight. That that's how we met, and that's something that we did. So she'll be on in just a few minutes to talk more about it. But what's going on with you, Bernadine? How was Halloween afterward and all that?
Well, actually, we didn't do much as a team for this Halloween, but in my town, at my house, I got my son to dress up and sit on the porch, and I bought like $30 worth of candy. And he sat there for 2 hours from 6 to 8. He had contact, different colors in each eye. And I had him dressed like a skeleton with a big robe and everything. And he was pretty creepy because he's a big dude. Well, he sat there for 2 hours from 6 to 8. That was the the trick or treat time,
Hmm.
only to figure out after we see no children
Oh no.
anywhere that we weren't having trick or treat, that it was in the square, which is downtown,
Hmm.
across the street from where we live, which I knew they were handing out candy there.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
poor thing. He sat there for 2 hours, not one kid. We didn't see children anywhere. So I'm like, and we don't live in a bad neighborhood. So I'm like,
Hmm.
well, what the heck?
Hmm.
Yeah, poor thing.
We didn't. When I think I talked about this a long time ago in a show with Pete Haviland, our former host who passed away. When I was, I don't know, I guess I was in early college or maybe late high school, and I have a friend who's just like your son. He's big and goofy,
Hmm.
and because I have weird tastes, I have the soundtrack to The Shining, and if you know the opening to The Shining, you know the
Yeah.
song. And I had the speakers in the front window, and I sat there in the chair, and he sat on a chair with a sheet over him, and he held his hands out like a chair, and he
Hmm.
sat perfectly still like a chair. And the kids would come up, and I'd be giving them candy on, like to their right, and he was kind of in a corner next to our door, and they'd be looking at him, and I'd just be, here you go, here's your candy, and like right when they were about to turn around, he would jump up and grab them. He grabbed about 5 of them in the sheet. They screamed and hollered and dropped all their candy all over the place, and then he'd uncover, to show that it's just me, it's just my friend Martha. So, and who wouldn't hurt a fly? But
Hmm.
now we didn't have anybody. This street was like, our street was so dark. It was just nobody wanted. It was like, stay
No
away,
porch lights.
stay
We were
away.
the only ones with a porch light on, but no children.
Yeah, don't make that mistake. We're putting a light on. Well, we just,
And like $30 worth of candy to eat after that.
well, let him eat it. It's free.
Yeah.
So, um, but yeah, I mean that's happened in between there, and I don't know. I think it's falling out of. I don't know why, but I think it's falling out of favor, to trick or treat, and it's just I don't know.
Well, the
It's
crime doesn't help.
yeah, and I like the idea that they have it centralized. Like you can bring your kids and to a certain spot and feel safe and do all kind of other things, but it does kind of kill the buzz for everybody else. So, well, he can have that candy as a treat. So
Yeah.
I know they
And
had some
now
stuff.
grown people are getting dressed up and going and getting candy, taking it away from the little kids.
Yeah, well, I mean, they could be doing other bad things, so at least they're trick or treating and not, setting houses on fire and stuff like that.
So,
But
yeah. You
you know,
never
it's,
know who's around the corner.
and then we had All Saints Day after that, and I had gone
Mhm.
to the graveyard before, but I know down here in New Orleans they go to clean the graves and paint them and do all that kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
so that was all of that. But so here we are in November, and we have our first real guest. So we're gonna move on, and I'll tell you a little bit about her, and then we're gonna bring our guest in. So Misti Gaither, and I'm reading now, so because I want to get it right, is the host of Quest, a journey into true crime and the paranormal. Her goal is to help bring awareness to the growing field of the paranormal and bring closure and peace to those affected by senseless acts of murder and reckless actions of others. Misti is also a psychic medium and has dedicated her gift to helping others. As a paranormal investigation, her gift is definitely helpful when trying to communicate and speak to the dead. Just as DNA and genealogy were both not even a possibility, they are now used as tools in solving cases long deemed unsolvable. She believes that one day the guidance and revelation of true psychic mediums will be recognized in a court of law and as an option for law enforcement. So we're going to bring her in. Misti, if you'll unmute your mic, join us. There
Hey,
she
how
is.
y'all doing?
Hey,
Hey,
Miss.
thanks for joining us, Misti.
Oh, I appreciate the invitation.
Well,
Thank you
you're our
so
first
much.
guest of the relaunch.
Okay, right.
All
I'll
right.
try to do a good job.
Well, how was your Halloween and everything? Because we were talking about ours. Do you have a good time? I know you were doing stuff.
Oh no, oh no. This
No.
Halloween, no. This Halloween, Catherine and I, we stayed at home. We were
Well,
like, oh
I
my
feel so
God, are
bad
we
now.
old? Or because usually we'll go to a party or do something or do something crazy, or like for the past 2 or 3 Halloweens, like we'd go to a haunted place in the quarter and spend the night, and investigate. And this year we didn't do anything.
Did you have
Wow.
your light on for children? Did you give out candy?
Well, nobody comes here. I don't know. Like we live on a dead end street, but I mean it's not like spooky or crazy or anything. But we never have trick or treaters, so yeah,
Well,
Wow. Nobody
yeah.
got in. What's going on with that? I mean, I feel a real sense of, I don't know, loss. Some of my best memories were, trick or treating when I was little. I almost got killed twice in one night.
There you go.
Running after my witch hat, which would have been sort of ironic, I guess now. Running. I fell out of my dad's car. I almost fell out the car when he
Oh
was
God.
making a turn, taking us somewhere to go. I guess trick or treating another part, and and yeah,
Alyne.
he took a turn, and if my brother wouldn't have grabbed me, got my little witch outfit, I would have been out on Broad Street, rolling out on the street. So, but those are good memories. It's good memories, and I
Well,
survived. So
you
kids are
survived through it.
experiencing that. But anyway, so we were talking a little bit about how we met, and we can get into it a little bit more because, like Bernadine says, it's when spirits want to bring people together, that's what they do. But I don't want to concentrate just on that. So, but we can talk a little bit about your experience with the upstairs, and you were on a real mission, and a lot of the commemoration then when we worked together on it, and then this 50th um, commemoration, your hard work. So, because you really track things down. So, how do you feel about it now? And maybe we should talk a little bit about just what happened, and like the actual crime itself, or what happened with the event, and then maybe you can tell us how you got drawn into it.
Right. Well, for those of you who do not know about the upstairs lounge, it was, I believe, in 1973, June the 24th, 1973. It was like 32, 33 uh, people who perished in a fire. They don't know exactly who started it, if it was a hate crime. The upstairs lounge was a gay bar, and if you know, back in the 70s, that wasn't acceptable, like it is more so today. And so they had to kind of meet in secret, and it was called the upstairs lounge, which is over what is called the Gemini now.
Hmm.
So how it's kind of a weird story, eh, about how that I kind of got into about the upstairs lounge, if y'all want to hear it.
Yeah, I do. I want to hear it.
Okay. Well, I'm not from around here, which you can probably tell by my accent, but
No.
but I remember it was just weird because I hadn't fully, back at that time, hadn't fully accepted my gifts or understand, like my purpose and this, you know, chosen, that this life, I guess, that chose me. But anyway, I was home from work, and I just remember feeling like I wasn't alone. And and so it just was really, like, obvious I was the only person at the house, but it just felt like all of a sudden people just started crowding around me. And so I got on my phone, and I was just scrolling, and I got a message from someone, and they had sent me an article about the upstairs lounge. Well, I had never heard of it because, like I said, I wasn't from here, but for some reason, like I said, I just never knew about it. So I remember reading about, you know, Alyne's article, and I just remember crying, and just I felt bad because I didn't know,
Hmm.
but um and then towards the end of the article, you had wrote, that you had tried to reach out to different people in the LGBTQ community, and no one would respond to you, or really. Like, you know,
Yeah, I didn't really know who to. I was just kind of reaching out, blindly. I just, I mean, there is a huge gay community here in New Orleans, but I didn't often, interact with it. I mean, I had moved out of New Orleans when my daughter was born, so I wasn't like in the French Quarter, or in usually where like shows or anything like that. So I was kind of like out of the link on that one. So I didn't know who it was going to be, but I was going to find out. But damn, if it wasn't you, who was the grand marshal, I think, of the Pride Parade. Was it that year or that
yeah,
one?
it was that year. Yeah.
Yeah. And I couldn't have done any better. Like Dean just said, it was like, so go on. I remember your house. You had problems in your house because it was starting to get like Grand Central Station with spirits, I guess, wanting to communicate to you. Because I remember being there. So tell us
Yes.
about.
All right. One of the best way that I can describe everything is for 2 years, it was like my life was engulfed by the upstairs lounge, researching, communicating, just, meeting family members. It just really became, and I felt them around me, not all 32, 33 of them, but there was probably about three or four that kind of followed me everywhere that I went. And it was just like they were wanting me to, get the word out, and it was just really like it was my purpose, Aline. It wasn't just a coincidence or just luck that I got that article.
Yeah.
And
I
I
mean,
believe that we were brought together for the
well,
purpose, you
I
know.
think so too. And Bernadine too. It was like a three-part article, and I'm going to be the website that I had it on. By the way, just to mention this is no longer there, but I have all of them, and I'm gonna start uploading them to Amazon so everybody can read basically what we're talking about. But I just took a shot in the dark with the upstairs lounge because when it happened, I was 12 years old, and I remembered the horrific pictures. That was the
Yes,
thing that stuck in my mind because the fire burnt out the whole second floor. And unfortunately, that building was like one of the few in the French Quarter that had not been brought up to fire code. And so they still
right.
had industrial, not just regular burglar bars, these were industrial bars on the window. And so trying to get out, a lot of people escaped through going to the third floor and then out the back, and they went across the roof of adjacent buildings. But there were some who went back inside, and I remembered seeing on TV. Just I like at the time they were so disrespectful. They had no. It was like I don't know why they thought to show that on television. The man had burned and he was stuck in the bars, but they did. And so that was seared in my memory. And the other people have said, oh, they knew where it was and they didn't know. I didn't know exactly where the actual location was. And I even went on an investigation with somebody who thought it was somewhere else. That was funny because, like, these are
Wow.
the squares, and I'm like, no. Well, now, yeah, I was like, no, that's not it. I know it wasn't that, but I didn't know exactly which place in the quarter. And then, like years later, I just said, I don't think anybody's really ever looked into whether that's haunted or not. Because I had started to write my ghost stories and stuff about New Orleans. And I was like, I don't know if there's ever really been a good investigation. So I also had, through good luck, a paranormal team who was Bernadine, right? So
Yes.
the first team to ever do a full investigation. And I had gone to meet with Jimmy Masacci, and I remember it was a rainy day, and he had put out little mementos, basically, but no one had ever officially. There was a plaque that was put there, I think, by the church, and no one had officially even recognized it in the city when we did the investigation. So, Dean, you might hear my dog in the background. I'm sorry. You can tell us about the investigation because there were some creepy things that happened there.
Oh yeah. I remember being in one of the far rooms I don't know if it was by an elevator. The burnt
Yeah, the
part.
old industrial, like it, because they had bales of cotton that they used to take up and down with the on the big elevator.
It was an elevator.
Yeah,
Well, it was still like smoky and charred and everything when we went in, from what I can remember, that room. And
mhm,
I had my camera set up and we can see down the hall. We have night vision video. And we went into that room where the other investigators left the room, and we never leave an investigator alone, especially in a building like that.
mhm,
But they went on their way and I stayed in the room for whatever reason, I don't know. Well, I turned around, like facing the doorway where the light was, and it was all darkness behind me.
mhm,
And I remember it felt like a big shadow spirit was all around my body, like from over my head, like I'd be around in smoke.
mhm.
Like I could see my body in the light, but then pitch black around me. And
Absolutely.
it felt thick. Like I had to get out of that room because I was like, I don't get scared very easily.
You don't get scared at all,
You
Dean. I'm sorry.
don't. So I'm like, holy crap. Yeah, because I felt the energy coming from it.
Well, there was a lot of anger, right, Misty? I mean, that you could feel, and with reason. They had a lot of anger, and they were even bringing it to you.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of anger and confusion and just sadness, a lot of sadness.
Hmm.
Um, you can't, go through something like that and it not be some kind of residual or intelligence. It's going to be there. And what's so ironic is when you go to the upstairs lounge, what it is today, like when you open the door, they have the same stairs there, and you can see the char
Hmm.
around. Still 50 years later, you could see the char wood around it.
Yeah. And Jimmy said that he leaves it deliberately. Like he didn't there he renovated it only so insofar as like to make it usable like an office, the second floor area, and put in refrigerators and stuff for the bar downstairs. And but he behind all of that he left the wood. Now to
Right.
describe it to people, the stairs is right off the street on the side of the Gemini on the I think it's on what is it the Iberville side. On
Iberville, I believe, yeah.
Yeah, you'd open the door and then kind of go up, and the stairs doglegged a little bit to the left, and then they had another door that you came to. Well, on the night of the fire, it was a Sunday night. That's just the thing. It wasn't like it was like Saturday morning at 2 a.m. It was a quiet Sunday, and they had church services, and then going back to the upstairs for like a buffet. And so they were just, it's just relaxed. Everybody was there, 28, 32 people, right? And one of them was a mom of one of the guys who was there, who had come with her other son, I think, if I'm right, to pick him up from the upstairs when this guy, and you can, I don't know if you've heard anything different, Misty, but what I heard was there was like a disagreement between two guys, and one guy left and was mad, and then came back and he put the lighter fluid into the stairs and set it on fire. Now, do you hear that, or have you heard different scenarios?
I've heard that. I've heard about the couples. I've heard how was one guy that they had threw out earlier, and that he came back, and it's I
Well, it's all
mean
truth, probably. I mean, it's all just as likely because it could have happened. I don't believe that there was like some, like somebody put a move on somebody and then they left because whoever that was knew where they were. Whoever did this, they knew they were in a gay bar, basically. So what were they doing there if they didn't want that? I think it was just somebody who got pissed off for getting kicked out or whatever, and it was that simple. And I honestly, I guess I have to think that he didn't think the fire was gonna do what it
Didn't they
did.
have carpet?
I mean, lighter fluid, who really thinks about that, And he put it on the stairs, but that thing went up. And the worst part of it is what happened was when they opened that little speakeasy window that they had. Yeah, flames went in And the whole interior was very sumptuous with curtains and shed carpeting and all, it was just really done up, and all that caught on fire. And it was just a nightmare from then on. And God, the way they talked about it on the radio and everything. And so I knew, and Dean knew that there were a lot of angry spirits there that, angry, like you say, confused, angry, going between all those emotions and everything. And the third floor, especially to me, was especially bad. And I don't know if the anger just made them congregate up there or what it was. But then Misty contacted me, right? You got in touch with me?
Yes, I
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
And I sent you an email, and
That was
then you called to me, and that's how it all began.
that. Yeah, just like that. And we, you worked incessantly on it, though. You even found where there were. Now, the people may not know. A lot of people listening probably do, but what happened in the aftermath was a lot of the families didn't claim the dead. Some did, but a lot of them were like it was a shameful thing, or considered that way at the time. And I mean, this is how far we've come. But at the time, and even in New Orleans, which is kind of like the city that care forgot, and you expect it's going to be a little bit looser. Well, they were still uptight about that, and so there ended up being like 4, I believe, claimed bodies. And you found them, and they're in Holt Cemetery, but you found them because nobody knew what happened to them. So your
Well,
work, go ahead.
I mean, they actually, because that's where we were told that they were in Holt Cemetery,
Hmm.
but actually they're not.
Oh, they're not. Okay.
No,
Complete.
that's where the research led, that they were there. But since then, they actually were buried in a potter's field in the east.
Oh, out on Gentilly Road, the one
I'm
way
assuming,
out.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like the family. They identified one of them, uh, Ferris LeBlanc,
Hmm.
and but his family, they won't let no one into that cemetery because Katrina
Oh my
really
God.
messed up, and it was like, they can't get to him to give him a proper burial because the city will not let anyone in there.
I'm shocked by that. I didn't know that. Because I can tell you, I felt bad that they were in Holt. But where you're
Crazy.
telling me, that Pauper's Field out there. It's on what's Old Gentilly Road, basically Highway 90. And if
Hmm.
you stay on it, you can go all the way to Mississippi. It's the old way in and out of New Orleans but it's way down Chef Highway, and it's been the Potter's Field forever. It's where anybody who died in Orleans Parish Prison that nobody could bury or anything, they put them there, and they had a pet cemetery out there too.
Oh
So
wow.
I can only imagine, when you say Katrina, I can only imagine what happened to that cemetery because it's all adjacent to the marshes and the swamps back there. That's I'm sorry to hear that. Wow, I thought all this time
Yeah.
Old Cemetery.
No, and they even have it's even mentioned on a plaque or anything, because now Holt, they have uh, like gives descriptions of different graves, and like that the cemeteries put up, and they
Mhm.
even have on there that they're, I think at first, they said that they were buried there, and then it may have said, I'll have to remember, I have to go check it out to remember, but it was like they thought that they were there, but they're not there, and that they're at the Potter's Field. They did something that corrected the
Yeah.
situation, but
Well, yeah,
everybody thought, you know,
yeah. At least they did find him, and you got the final resolution. But that's not the most desirable one. I mean, because recently, if everybody doesn't know, maybe somebody listening doesn't know what a Holt Cemetery is. It's a pauper seal that's in the city of New Orleans, and I always called it like a bury your own or bury yourself cemetery. But what it is indigent families and poor people can obtain a plot there, and as long as they keep it up and maintain it, they can continue to bury their families there for years, as long as it's their spot. They don't have to pay for it, but they just do the maintenance. But you have to bury. You use a backhoe. It used to be you use shovels, but you have to bury your own family members, and that's why it's notorious for having bones mixed up in the mud and everything. Teeth, bones, you name it, and
They're
Oh
not
yeah.
embalmed.
yeah, and maybe because they do have funeral homes that do like indigent stuff, but I mean, we've all been out there. If it's somewhere, if you
Well,
travel here,
there's no gravestones, or the ones they did have, Katrina like washed them out.
yeah, yeah,
But
and
Yeah.
they had like a boot for one person. They had PVC pipe around one
mhm,
grave. They had a baby's crib upside down on another, like a baby's grave. So they have their own markers. They
yeah.
just don't have names.
But what happened was, Save Our Cemeteries started to pay attention to it, and they've done. This is another terrible thing to say. But they've done so much improvement that I think the character's gone a little bit, just a little bit. It suffered from it, and because it used to be called the Voodoo Cemetery too. Now a lot of voodoo and a lot of witchcraft has been done in that cemetery. So
Oh
anybody
yeah.
who visit there has to be aware of that fact. One time I got stuck in the mud. I got stuck. I
You
tried
know,
to.
issues.
Me and my fat ass. I tried to jump a ditch.
Oh
I
no.
thought I tried to jump this ditch, and I'm gonna tell everybody about it. I had these little wedgie sandals on, and I jumped it, but the the shoe stuck in the mud, and I was going backwards, like I was gonna fall backwards with my arms. And I was with a guy who was visiting from San Francisco, and I'm showing him around, right? And I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna fall. I left them freaking shoes. I didn't fall. I managed to go forward and shift my weight forward. And those shoes I left there at the gate, and I left 15 cents too at the gate, which is a whole hoodoo thing about leaving it for the cemetery spirits. But believe me, I'll take that stuff. That was right by, the reason I did that was right by there's a big oak tree that basically is in the middle, and it's been struck by lightning so many times, and so much voodoo has been done. And I'm like, I'm not taking this mud in my car. I'm not taking this
Right.
home. I drove home barefoot. I'm like, keep the shoes, and here's 15 cents. Y'all stay
Yep.
right there. Oh, God. Y'all should have been there.
Aline has warned people, do not take bones and
Oh,
things from the cemetery, but some people didn't listen.
some people didn't. And there was more recently, I know you heard this one, a girl was going in there and taking bones and selling. It's not very recently, this is a few years ago, selling them on the internet. As real human bones. One time, I got out of the car. I was showing some other people around, and I got out, stepped out, and there was a bone right there on the side of the road. And I didn't do anything about it. I'm not touching that. And there was a lady standing there, and she's like, I'm so confused. And she had some mums, because it was like around, it was All Saints Day. She couldn't remember where the grave was, which is bad. But the conditions at the Gentilly Paupers Field, which has been there longer than I'm alive, that's just bad. And I feel really, really bad that they're out there. But we did accomplish what we set out to accomplish,
Oh
because
yeah.
ghost hunters started sniffing around.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, they had already like done one story of mine with the U.S. Mint, and I was talking to a producer that knew them and put me in touch, and I'm like, hey, y'all looking at the upstairs, because you know why? I wanted them to do this right. I didn't want them to come in, and I think we, you, me, Dean, all of us were able to tamp that down a little bit, because I think they realized what they had. Like, in other words, you're not going to come down here and sensationalize this like everything else is sensationalized, like Marie Laveau and Madame Laveau. You're not going to do that, because this is something different, and this is still an unsolved crime. So they think they solved it. People
It
still
may
think
end up
that.
at the mortuary.
Yeah, I mean, Misty, we know some of the dead passed were brought over to Shane's funeral home. Like, they brought some to different funeral homes and the coroners, and I told them that funeral home, and there was a guy there willing to talk to him about it, and they didn't even go over there. And then I said, well, right around the corner, basically, there's a cemetery and you can go in there anytime and film. Oh no, we don't want to do guerrilla filming. So I'm like, okay. So they went to a whole other cemetery and they got a bunch of people believing that the 4 unclaimed bodies are all over across the lake from New Orleans. I'm like, God, please. I know I know it's entertainment, but we couldn't control those things, but they had a degree of respect about it, which they didn't apply. And each of us, we had our like 30 seconds because we all were going to be filmed to be on Ghost Hunters, right? And
Right.
you maybe 60 seconds of you. Dean comes all the way from Lafayette, and 10 seconds of her saying it was a big shadow right behind me. That was it. And I'm like, this is it? This is
Yeah,
Ghost?
I gave them all of my evidence to use on the show, and they didn't use any.
Yeah, they didn't use any of it. And you
Wow.
had some good evidence, good EVPs and all that. But together, I'm going to give Misty the lion's share because you never stopped. Once you got hold of it, you never really stopped until it was recognized, and all the fact that they even did a 50th commemoration because of you did all that. You were the person I needed to get in touch with.
Well, like I said, there's no such thing, in my opinion. There's no such thing as coincidence.
Right.
And but you asked me, like, I'm trying to remember exactly what you said. Like, how do I feel about the upstairs now, and what happened, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like when I read, like I was telling you, when I read their names at the 40th anniversary,
Yeah.
and it was like, I don't know. And after all this, everything that happened, and I was kind of able to let go in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, you
Because
did. You were crying though, but and
yeah,
I think I said at the time that they spent their lives hiding, they spent their lives hiding, and because they had to hide, this happened to them because they couldn't be who they were, they couldn't be out. And I believe that I said at some point, maybe even to them, that they can come down now. You can come out now. You don't have to stay up in this and relive this tragedy over and over. I know there's some spirits that just couldn't forget and forgive or whatever, and they're still in there. Don't believe ghost hunters when they say they solved it, and don't believe it when they say it's not haunted anymore, because it definitely is haunted. And we're going to try and get some investigations back in there. But I felt like you guys now you can rest in peace. You can come, you can stay if you want to hang out, but now you don't have to stay in there and wait to have justice done and wait for your story to be told. So it was something very significant to me in my life. I was glad that I was able to I was glad that I was able to do that, and I know you are too.
I definitely, it like I said, it consumed me for 2 years, and just I couldn't sleep very much. It was like, their spirits were with me and
Yeah.
wanting things done, and it was just really an experience. I may not never ever have that again, but what we did, and how it all worked out, I mean, that was amazing.
Well, when the story's told, your name's going to be attached to it. I remember you telling me that they would wake you up at night
Oh,
and
yeah.
you would sleep
Mhm.
and you would do research and they'd be guiding you. And so, we knew we were doing something good. And we have evidence, even if people think that we're crazy about the paranormal stuff. We have the evidence to prove to them. We have some EVPs, which I always talk about the famous one where this guy Bud, who my cousin told me to go, told me he knew, and he had died there. And I told him, that's who I said, I promise you, I'll tell. I just don't know who to do it. Dean always says this, and I got chills when I think of it. And I was scared. Look, everybody looks at me and like, you write all these stories. You go, look, that scared the hell out of me when she sent me that email. I mean, that EVP, because he was standing right there with me. And I'm like, definitely going to get this done. That was another thing too. Like we promised them that we would get their story out, and it's just amazing. I mean, who thought Ghost Hunt?
He says, promise me.
Yeah, he says, promise me. See, I got chills. But that led you already had like an interest in the paranormal, and you already had, the abilities to, to basically tap into. So you've like moved on now, and you have your show and everything else, but you're doing investigations as well as looking into true crime. And so basically, I guess it grew along with having basically solved the upstairs story. You moved on to other things, right?
Yes, I'm really anxious to kind of merge the two, the true crime and paranormal. And like I said, it could be used as a tool to help solve crimes, which, there are cases that has happened, but for it to be like legitimized, I guess, in some people's ways. But I just think that there's more that we can do with our gifts. And I think that would be a really good option.
So you've done some investigations and stuff then. Since then, why don't you tell us about some of those? I know you had talked about the Axeman murders, but you've been investigating other locations and stuff before you started the show, really. So tell us about how that started.
Well, it's Paranormal New Orleans, and one of my best friends, Carrie Roy, she's the New Orleans psychic medium. We, just hit it off, and so we started investigating together. And our first investigation was the Andrew Jackson Hotel,
Mm-hmm.
and that was extremely active, like to the point where you can hear disembodied voices, the running, like kids running on the balcony. You could just the like our equipment that we have. I mean, it would just go off, go off, go off, and so the Andrew Jackson was one of our first ones, and then the second one was, I don't know if y'all know Clay Shaw.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think,
he was um, the only person ever to be tried for the JFK assassination, which he was
yeah,
accused of. Okay, well, he was from New Orleans and a beautiful home on Esplanade, and so the current owner asked us to come and investigate, which we've been twice, but we actually have it on film and it's on YouTube. And Clay Shaw, he really, um, I think his biggest concern with me and Carrie was that we were going to try to make him leave because his home, I mean, it won like awards, and it was like a show place. And that's something that I wouldn't do because I know how much that home meant to him.
yeah.
So
Well,
I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry.
well, no. If they're living comfortably with the people that are there, and they're not some sort of entity that's attacking them. I mean, there's thousands of stories of people living happily with ghosts haunting their houses. So there's no reason why you would have, y'all would have moved him on or anything. He's not causing any problems. In that,
Exactly.
yeah. So, and
And
that
I think,
goes for the houses in. They got a lot that are like that.
yeah, definitely. So we did the Clay Shaw, and then we did the Axeman.
Hmm.
Um, for the haunted hotel, and it is haunted. And if anyone listening wants to go and stay there, uh, to me the most haunted rooms is 113 and 114.
Okay, so tell us about how that links in with the Axeman. The haunted hotel is on Earth. Is it on Ursulines?
Yeah, 623 Ursulines.
Okay.
And we've probably investigated there. Carrie and I did the first time, but after that, like Catherine and I, and then some us with some of our friends, and um, it's like it's two different worlds. I don't know if y'all ever been there. They have like the main part, and then they have the courtyard with rooms out there, and
Hmm.
it's night and day. And I picked up on the courtyard. area, especially towards the back, is where that I believe that the Axeman, like he kind of hangs out there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at the house part, um, I believe that there is a female spirit and a male, and that they're married.
Mm.
And the Axeman, he's like it's not that they battle, but it's like he wants to get into that part. And so
Mm.
far, the lady has been able to keep him, from getting into that part. But there's definitely other spirits in there. I mean, it used to be a convent, used to be a lot of things. It's like 1820 something
Mm-hmm.
or older than that.
Yeah.
So that's
All of
really, and I think he followed me for a while,
you mean
and like yeah, like he followed me, and I mean, I had like stuff happen around the house or to me, and so finally, whatever it was, if it wasn't him, it was nothing good, and so I finally got rid of that. But that's the kind of the chance and that you take, when investigate. I mean, it's not everything like it is on TV.
That's right. We say that all the time. And somebody, a negative spirit like that would attract other negative spirits just by, at random people, spirits, but of dead people who were inclined toward that in life, and they say, oh, well, we're going to hang out with you because you've got all this energy. And. Now a lot of people might not know the story of the Axeman. Do you want to tell us about it a little bit?
Sure. I mean, I'm not an expert, but let me see. Uh, 1918, 1919, around that area, I believe it was 6 or 8 people, got
Chopped up. Yeah. And
axed.
it was a
And
fun
right.
gag.
And so it was mostly, I believe, Italian.
Mm-hmm.
People was Italian. And so in the Axeman wrote a letter to the newspaper and was saying that whoever plays jazz on
On
this
that.
certain date at night, yeah, that
Mm.
he wouldn't, harm anyone, and so finally, I believe it was 1920 was the last one, and it was just like, and I have a whole theory that I did my very first show on.
Yeah.
I did it with Sam Baltrusis. He writes a lot of books and a lot of shows, and he's a direct descendant of the Borden family.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're gonna
And I
have
did,
we're gonna have a
I
link
did
to your
the show with him. I'm sorry.
we're gonna have a link to your shows in the description. So I'm
Oh,
just saying, if they're interested in watching it, they can catch the link and go that way. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, no, no. I was just saying that how that I've always thought that a lot the axe people are like connected,
You mean
like
like
some of
throughout
the
the country?
like Valiska, like
Mhm.
Valiska.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Yeah. The theory. I watched your show.
mhm,
Theory of these maybe just one person or copycat people following the railroads that go across.
right. And then
Yeah.
there was even a religious aspect brought in on my show about it that I want to look in more to that.
So you think the guy that was the Axeman though followed you home, and he was you? Let's back up. So he must have had rooms at what is now the haunted hotel that he might have stayed there.
Yeah, and so they have the room. You can stay in the room, the actual room that he's reported to stay in. And Catherine and I think a couple of years ago on Halloween, we stayed the night there.
Mm.
And yeah, it was really active. I mean, moving stuff and just uh
You
knocks.
could just feel his presence.
Oh,
Yeah,
this cat. Yeah.
oh here, yeah, Cat's here.
Oh,
So, excuse me. So yeah, so I mean,
Now so you tapped into it psychically and everything, and he probably followed you to your house or followed you home and stuck with you for a while. Did you get any kind of hints, messages, who this person
hello.
might have been? Hey, Misty.
Hey, hey, I can hear you now. It just went blank.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was
That's okay.
everything looks okay on this end.
Yeah.
No, saying that he followed you home. Did you get any hints to his identity or anything like that?
Well, the first time when Carrie and I investigated it,
Mm-hmm.
actually during the day I got a name just out of the blue when I was at work. And so normally what I do is when I get something random like that, I'll write it down then and put like a date and time by it to
Mm-hmm.
see if, like if someone needs it or if it's for someone else or something happens, I'll have a record. So I wrote this name down and I just put it in my pocket. And so we were investigating later that evening, and Carrie and I, we were filming, and I was asking her, did she pick up anything? We were in the X-Men's room, and she's like, yeah. And she was describing, um, what she thought that he looked like and what area he's from, and like stuff like that. And then she said, "Well, are you picking up?" And I no, I'm sorry. I asked her, "Are you getting a name or anything?" And she says, "I'm getting the letter R." And I said, "Oh." She goes, "Are you what are you getting?" And I said, "Well," and I explained to her how I wrote the piece of paper down, and I opened it up, and it was the name Robert.
Wow.
Well,
Wow.
And
You
I
mean
mean,
you're gonna have to go and investigate there. Stay in that
yeah,
room.
oh
Definitely.
yeah, yeah, because I mean, it's a beautiful place to stay. I mean, when you first walk up, you wouldn't think that, but they have a beautiful courtyard. And what's little known fact is there's supposed to be two lead coffins buried. One is under the floor of one of the rooms
Mm-hmm.
mhm.
back, and one is in like where trees and plants and everything. And I don't know who is supposed to be there. But anyway, it's two separate people buried, and they said that they buried them in lead coffins because they were so evil that even the evil spirits didn't want to have nothing to do with them, and so
That's
they
pretty
contained
bad.
the spirit in with the lead, is what they're saying.
But you know what? They should have buried him in iron because
Right.
iron really keeps them in. But the thing
Yeah,
is,
isn't lead a werewolf thing?
yeah, lead and some base metals. I think it wouldn't do anything against a vampire, but iron would against a vampire. But like New Orleans had so many, plagues and yellow fever, and it's like
Right.
you don't have to go far to find people buried all the time. Like whenever they used to make repairs on streets, because dot 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 they don't anymore. But when they used to, they're always digging up. Oh, we got to stop. Like, they find like bones, and then they have to call in the LSU and Tulane and to go look at it, and so it's a whole big thing. It's important, but the thing is, I mean, the city was really small. I mean, it was like 6 blocks by 11 blocks in the early. I think I'm right about that in the earliest part, and so anywhere outside of that, they just start burying their dead until they eventually started moving. And we got the all of the cemeteries down by Canal Street, but you don't have to dig far to find somebody. But that's interesting that they would put them under a building. I mean that is interesting. So,
And actually, the room that it's buried under, you can definitely feel. Uh, you can feel it.
something.
You can,
Well,
oh,
it sounds
yeah.
like somewhere where you got to go, Dean. We got to get some
Yeah,
investigation. Maybe we'll do it together and we'll live stream it or something. But
it would be awesome.
that would be good.
With
Yeah.
Um,
Miss,
Y'all let
yeah,
me know when I can talk to them and get y'all in.
sure, we'll do that.
we want you to be there too, Misty.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, that's even better.
Yeah.
yeah. You can stay in the rooms with the coffins. I'll just. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not. But a little bit of dead people.
Right.
Getting old. I'm getting kind of scared here. No, what I was saying though is just to clarify a little bit about the Axeman. When I was saying Italians, it was peculiar, and he was chopping up a bunch of Italians. I mean, that's basically it. Until I think he accidentally got a German family or something happened, and but it was pretty much Italians, and that led a lot of people to believe that it was mafia because the
Mhm.
mafia came to America through our port, with the
Right.
Sicilian came through here and then spread. And they thought, well, this is a mafia thing because they even had an Italian guy that should have been killed. Like everybody thought, like, why is he not killed? He did XYZ. He moved to California, and then, according to what I heard, he got killed, and then it stopped. Then there were no more. Um, there were no more murders, but it was a pretty interesting time, and there was they thought he was Jack the Ripper because he wrote a similar letter to
Right.
the Ripper, and it had the same. But by that time, there were so many Jack the Ripper copycats. There's no way of knowing, But the theory of the railroads is really very interesting because if people were killed with axes all along the railroad, then he's somebody traveling the railroads, using them to get around and then killing people right there. But I'm saying some of the things that you said in your show, and I'm just going to tell everybody go look at your show because you had a really good show on it and really good guests talking about.
American Horror Story did a good episode on it too.
Yeah, they did. They did. I kind of like their interpretation of it. There's got to be something. To me, I'm always thinking there's got to be something supernatural about that because he was. I just watched something on YouTube. Somebody did they did a top 10, and it comes up in your feed, top 10 haunted New Orleans and all. And one of the things that always struck me about that was this person, whoever he was, would chisel out a panel on the doors. Like he would either chisel out like a rectangular, straight up and down vertical panel, or the old kind where it was. We're talking a panel on one side of a door, and they believed that's how he gained access to the places that he got into. And I was like, okay, well, so he's a skinny guy or something, or it sounded weird, and he'd have to chisel out these doors. But then I saw a documentary on Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker killer, the Hail Satan, and he was about 6 feet 5 inches, 6'6", wore a 13 shoe, had shoulders like 4 feet across, and he used to do exactly that. He did it in a couple of his crimes. He chiseled out a panel on a door, and he
Wow.
got and I'm like, so, and he had all kind of demons and demonic stuff attached to him, and it just struck me as something helping him maybe getting in. So when I look at the Axeman story, that's what I'm puzzled by. I'm like, well, is there some supernatural element that we're missing? Even if the guy's traveling around, or even if there's more than one guy traveling around, So
What
that's
about
just.
energy?
What about what?
I it could be the energy,
Mm-hmm.
like a spirit. You know what I mean? Like
With them, yeah,
traveling and
yeah,
affecting people to do stuff like this.
like a familiar. Because I know that you put forth the idea that Velisca, it's everybody knows Velisca now.
Right.
The terrible axe murders of the children and everything up there, but you even kind of connected to that, and that is definitely thought to be a demonic spirit, the residual of that still resides there. So I mean, do you think there's some kind of supernatural thing as well as just a true crime connection like that?
I do. I think that it's, you know,
Mm-hmm.
definitely connected. Definitely.
Because they're doing something so evil, that's
Right.
evil. Even if you are doing a mob hit, that's a terrible way to go. And he down here, he killed a mother and baby, a whole family with an infant and some children, and so it's not just in Velisca that the kids died. And there are other crimes along the railroad. It would be interesting to really travel the route, like you say, road trip.
Right. Okay,
Road
go
Go
get
trip.
yeah.
Yeah, road trip. On your show, you're like road trip. Let's go.
Right. Like
So
I'm ready to go now.
I know, and you could make a whole series, I guess, out of that, following the steps of whatever you want to call it. But that would be interesting. So, other than that, like what others? Yeah, I know you've got the interest in the crime, and I told you about the one to look into, the Italian and the more Italians. I don't know what we were doing down here, but and that's my people. But they got lynched in the Chief Hennessy murder. So I told you
Right.
about that. I was a guest
Yeah.
on your show. That one's
Yeah.
coming, but where else would you like to, like, what's goals to, like, cases that you would like to explore, and then paranormal places that you would like to investigate?
Definitely on my bucket list is Velisca.
Yeah.
I don't know why I always have a what's the right word, like an affinity or something about it. Like I read everything, I research, I kind of pour myself into it, like I did the upstairs lounge.
Hmm.
Like I know a lot about Velisca, and I would really love to go there. Uh, True crime, I mean, there's so many. I mean, if you want to get local, in the murder of Josh Woodruff, he got killed at the corner of Dumaine and Decatur. He got lodged under a car. They hit him and drug him
Yeah.
all the way over the GN.
Do you remember that, Dean?
In
There was
2016.
Yeah, they hit him. They ran over him. Uh, one of Where was it? Was it on Merle Street or on
Decatur and Dumaine.
Decatur and Dumaine? Okay. That's where basically they ran over the guy, or they got him under the car, and they went all the way to over the Mississippi River Bridge. Like, how do you do that with a human being under your car? I mean, so his spirit has to be lingering.
Oh yeah. I mean, and just without the paranormal, I mean, it's just sad and
Did they
A
ever,
lot of
was,
unnecessary pain for a
oh my God,
long time before you die.
stop. Okay, okay, say it's a callous ass, okay, and he's gonna do it anyway. But wouldn't you want to stop? And you just, I mean, why not? Why drag him all that way? Just leave him there dead, because he had to die. I don't know when, but I hope quickly. But I mean, I just
right.
something like that. I remember that. That's terrible. But he's got to be lingering around. Did they ever arrest anybody?
No, they have a picture of the car,
Mm-hmm.
like, but can't see the license plate or anything. Um, they don't really have. I mean, you really wouldn't have forensics too much, like DNA. You wouldn't have that.
No, except for other than the guy who got killed. Um,
Right. Yeah. But I'm just saying you can't get that from the person who killed him.
mhm.
So it's kind of limited on what can be done.
Well, the not our problem dudes. I'm sure they'll get on it eventually. The NOPD, because it's just not our problem
Hello?
dudes.
Oh,
They're just they're a shambles now. They're nothing like they used to be, and they don't care about stuff like that. And it's a shame, but yeah, it would be great if you could solve that one. And I'm
yeah.
pretty sure there's some negative energy. How awful. And what other ones? You're gonna do a road trip. Where else are you gonna go?
Well, I'm gonna have it all mapped out. Of course, like I said, Velisca, but I wanted to start T.C. Eliot, who was also on my show about the axe murders. He was saying that maybe I think it's DeRitter and different Crowley, that they actually had axe murders there too, right after the New Orleans.
Yeah,
And so
that's
is
it.
that connected? And I really want to start at the Axeman Hotel, is what they call it, on Ursulines, and just map all the way up to Velisca, like go to each stop, like Texas, wherever, and just really research and investigate. And then from Velisca, go all the way to Fall River,
To Lizzie Borden. I was
about Lizzie Borden.
gonna,
Yes.
Now, what do you think about that as a crime? I don't know that she did it. I don't think she. I don't know.
I kind of flip flop. Sometimes I think she did it, and sometimes I think she didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just it's just crazy. And Sam, he was in the Curse of Lizzie Borden. It's on Discovery Plus,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a clairvoyant, and he can channel. Not really channel, but he's just really sensitive and picks up really good stuff. So he was at the Lizzie Borden house, and it was like because he was, related to him, they kind of, was more active.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember from your show, hearing him. I watched Dead Files.
Oh yeah.
Watched Amy Allen go in there into. Now, I do believe she's legitimate. I always have, and the reason I
Oh
think
yeah.
it is because that guy was a cop, and his whole career would be on the line if they were faking stuff. So I think that she's got it. They may sensationalize some stuff, for
Mhm.
drama. I think that she went in there and said that she felt that Lizzie basically split. That there was Lizzie, and then there was this Lizzie that had been abused, and basically her personality or her spirit basically split. And the thing that is still in the Lizzie Borden house is the bad spirit, bad part of Lizzie that did all these
Mhm.
crimes. Now, she could. I don't know. I mean, sometimes, like you, I think she could. Think she couldn't. I can see her coming into, and hitting somebody in the face that's sleeping. But the mother upstairs, I don't know. That looked like a kind of a big woman to sneak up on. But you never know. I mean,
Right.
totally on a taking somebody totally unawares. But that's what Amy Allen said, and it makes sense, at least to
I
me.
remember
That
that episode. Yeah, I agree. I remember that episode.
yeah, that was one of the good ones.
Oh yeah.
So we're gonna I guess we'll wrap you up on we've been talking for now over an hour. So are you really gonna do that? Are you gonna do a web series? You better do it, Misty.
Oh, I'm gonna do it. I mean, I'm gonna be planning it and checking prices. I want to rent an RV or something, and I mean that would just definitely be a. I wouldn't
I
even know how to act.
cat gone across the country.
Yeah, yeah. I told her about what I wanted, thinking about doing. She just kind of looked at me.
I have the same look whenever anybody says camping or RV. What? No.
I ain't camping. No
Hey,
way.
I got one more question. That made me think of
Shoot.
it. What do you think of these missing 411 cases in the national parks?
I think that is something to it.
Yeah.
Um, I personally, I mean, Dave Pilatus, I believe is how you say his name.
Yeah.
He,
I
I've watched a lot of his stuff. He has a really good YouTube channel where he breaks down a lot of the cases or highlights like different areas. And I mean, he's really researched. And I mean, like some of these people that are missing, they totally disappear.
That's the thing that is
Yeah.
so astounding that I just can't, like there's one where little boy that went missing, he was about 3 or 4, and they were looking for him.
Dior,
I'm sorry.
the little boy, his name was Dior.
No, that's a different one. That's in
Okay.
Iron
Sorry,
something.
sorry.
Yeah, no, there was one of the ones that happened like in the early 70s, maybe or something.
Oh,
But
okay, okay.
basically what happened was the child went missing, and they started a search, and it was a mountain. So I think it was near Yosemite or in Yellowstone. But there were cliffs, there were high peaks and stuff all around, and they had assembled the search. But while that was going on, there were people hiking who had not heard anything about it, who had been camping, and they were coming back from the camp they had made, and they were hiking back down to the main area, the main staging area, and they hadn't heard anything about it. But they looked across a gorge. They were walking along above a gorge, not a really deep one, but the
Mhm.
peaks were really high, and they saw a little boy, a little like 3-year-old boy, sitting up
Wow.
on a ledge by himself across the gorge from them, sitting up on by himself just up there. And they
What?
Wouldn't that? I mean, I would say, what the hell? I'd stop and look, but they must have. They convinced themselves, or they said, well, his parents must be there. This kid's right here on a cliff. Okay, so that's like fail.
Right.
But
First clue.
yeah, and but then they saw it. They said that's strange, but his family must be there, and they walked on down. And then they said, well, what's going on? And they said, there's a kid missing. And they were using the entrance to the thing as staging area. And it's
Mhm.
like, and Paulides said that, but everybody talks about it. It's like, how did that kid? There were no scalable. I mean, he would need to have been, in shoes and things. He was just sitting there in his clothes, and I was like, how did that kid get there? And
Right.
then recently, I was watching Eagle Channel. Okay, you're gonna laugh,
Uh-huh.
but it's this channel out of Romania, something where they have the golden eagles, and we've got the bald eagles over here, and they're god darn huge. Okay, they can pick
Mhm.
up a lot of shit, but this one golden eagle had brought a fawn, like a baby
What?
deer, a
Yeah.
baby deer, flew with it, grabbed it, and brought it up to its nest to feed. And it was on film. It was, and I didn't look because it was dead, but I didn't want to watch that. But I was like, wait a minute. If that thing could pick up a deer, then something could pick up a kid. And I wonder a lot if it's just something that they're not seeing that's probably supernatural. I'd like to think, I guess it was supernatural, and that, not that there's real animals that could do it, but something like that. How did that kid get up there? How does Don't go, but don't put that on your road trip because you might disappear. You'll
Yeah.
just,
I'm not going to any national parks. Trust that.
I was like, we were driving through the Smoky Mountains on one of the big contraflow evacuations, and I was like, this is nice. And then I watched that, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
The of it. There's got to be a supernatural element to it. People have talked about time slips,
Yep.
fluxing, basically, quantum fluxing, and suddenly they're gone. And it's just too bizarre. It's too permanent. Now they have had a few who've shown up, but, like the guy that disappeared and showed up, he disappeared on the East Coast and showed up somewhere over in California and didn't know what had happened to him, and
Mhm.
still wearing ski clothes and all that. And he was gone for like days, and then he showed up on the other side of the country and couldn't remember a damn thing. Those things that as far as solving true crimes and stuff, that fascinates me.
Oh
And
yeah.
so, yeah. So my decision not to take up camping and all that and learn how to do all that was back in the day. That was a good decision.
That
'Cause,
was a great decision. Oh
right,
my God. Dude,
that
you were ahead of
right,
your time.
I have no desire to go camping. It looks
Mm.
miserable, unless I'm at a Ren Fest or something. But that's different. But this it looks miserable, and shit can fly out of the air and grab you. No, or Bigfoot or whatever. Whatever happens, or you can just fall into a time slip. And no, and it's interesting because Paulides has a database. He says that he enters all of this in. And he said that this has happened for centuries, and there are cases uh, back in, like, there was one I read. It was like 16 something in a city in Europe where a man was he was walking across a town square, and there were people all around, and he just walked and disappeared, like literally just disappeared in front of everybody.
Mhm.
And there was no evidence of any, like, there was no witch or anything, like nobody was screaming that. They literally saw the man disappear, just steps in front of them. And so how does that happen? And that was back in the 1600s. And I don't, it was just like a footnote, but it's like the man disappeared right in front of everybody. How does that happen? So
Sure.
anyway, I guess that's a topic for another show. So, but I guess we'll wrap it up here. And so, what's coming up on your channel? What are some of your upcoming shows going to be?
Well, I'm gonna have Bernadine on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna talk, and that'll be coming up in November. Carrie Roy will be this week's guest. Let's see. I'm planning a special Christmas show. Y'all have to watch that. I have Jeremy Leonard of 28 Days, and he's a demonologist. He'll be on the show,
Mhm.
and just have just a lot of different guests coming up.
And so the channel, the show is Quest. True.
Yes.
Can you tell me what it is?
Okay, it's Quest. It is a journey into true crime and the paranormal.
That's right. I knew I would butcher it up, so that's why I
No,
told you.
you did great.
It's here on YouTube, and I was on it. And thank you for having me. And we want you to come back here too, and especially if you get things lined up for some kind of a road trip, that we definitely want to know about it.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, the world will know. Believe me, I'll be so happy.
Remember Misty and Kat? What happened?
Right.
Look, if you camp, they'll park in a Walmart parking lot or something.
Hey, that's an idea.
You know,
Or at
that could
least,
be more dangerous than the freaking woods.
but you're right.
I'm telling you. Well, it was great having you on. I really
Thank
appreciate
y'all.
it. Yes. And come on back, and hopefully we can do some investigations and stuff. Dean, you got to
Oh,
get one. Yeah, definitely.
That'll be
I'm
awesome.
ready.
Yeah,
I'm ready.
we'll be in touch. Well, best of
She's
luck.
always ready. She's always ready.
Misty, right. Nobody can say a thing about Misty either. So, but I'm so glad that you came. I really appreciate it, and we'll stay in touch and see what we can get together, and maybe we'll just live stream the whole thing. So that will be good.
That would be good. And thank y'all again for asking me. It meant a lot. Thank you.
Okay, Missy, thanks for being our first guest on our new relaunch. And bye, Kat. I know you're there.
She's gone.
Oh, she's gone. Oh, well, tell her I said bye.
I will.
All right, Misty, you go and enjoy yourself. Thank you so
All
much
right.
for.
Thank you.
Bye,
Okay,
Missy. Talk to you
Bye,
soon.
Bye.
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 Leave the call. Remember to press your mic off.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it now. Let's see.
Hover over it and
Yeah, because it's not pulling up the.
It should come up. Hang on.
Because
Oh,
it's going to.
you know what? We can disconnect you
Oh, here we
here.
go. Here we go. I got it.
Oh, okay, you got it. Okay,
Yeah,
we're learning the learning curve, everybody. So
that's
we're
all we can do. Thanks.
all right. Thank
bye.
you. See you
Thank you.
later. All right. So, Dean, you ready to go camping?
Oh yeah. No, not camping.
I remember we tried to get David Politis to come on, but he's probably too big. He's probably too big of a deal, you know. And I've heard different things about him. I think I think it's kind of a jealousy thing. I don't really, I mean, the man takes a lot of time. That's all he does is record these, document all these disappearances and stuff. So it'd be great if we could have him on.
What's
But
his last name?
I'm sorry,
What's his last name?
Politis. It's
Oh,
Paulides. I'm sorry.
oh, okay. I'll sure look into it.
Yeah. So our next guest is going to be Danny Blake or Daniel Blake, but I
Daniel
call him
Blake.
because we know him, and he is a psychic. He had, correct me if I'm wrong, he had a near-death experience and came back with psychic abilities. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. So that's going to be a good one. That'll be our next guest. So we'll have him on.
And
What
he
is it?
has afterlife connections.
Yeah. And now
Psychic. Yeah.
he's helping people with his psychic. I will say, he came up to me and I remember you saying, you got to stop doing that. But he said, I see her standing behind you and she looks like this. And he described her. It was my mom. I had never met him, but you remember it was at your house. And he said, I see her standing behind you. So, I'm glad we'll have him on and we'll see what's been going on with him. So, and you and the
Yeah.
stuff else. Because he works with you, doesn't he? Like
Yes.
on investigations. Yeah. So,
Yeah. And we've done cases for the police department here.
yeah, I remember that. I do remember that.
And they finally caught the guy, and it was the I'm not gonna say names, but the lady that died that we were looking for her murderer,
Yeah.
she actually said the murderer's name, but she said his nickname.
Mm.
But the police knew who that was, and so did the family, her family. And we gave them all that information, found, weapons and all this stuff, and gave them pictures, but they didn't pay any mind to us, I guess, because of what we do. And years and years and years down the road, they find the person who confessed to it, and it's the same person that the dead lady told us was.
Wow. See, that's something Misty was talking about too. And I mean, psychics have been working with police, willing whether the police want it or not. They've had since I mean for since crime. A lot. There have people that come in with impressions and stuff like that, and so many
Bobby
times.
Thomas, he's been doing that forever.
Hmm. But
Yeah,
so
they
many.
had one before, psychic profiler.
Yeah. Sometimes I mean I watched this basically a documentary about a psychic, and in the beginning, the police were like laughing about it. They just showed you how over the course of working with her, they were totally convinced by the end of the show, especially when she basically solved their crimes.
Right.
That they. So yeah, I mean, there's room for paranormal investigators. There's room for psychics, and I don't think it can be ignored like it used to be. And I think
No, but
people
they
are.
told us that our type of evidence don't hold up in court.
Well, that's got to be true. I mean,
Mhm.
I guess unfortunately that's true. I mean, I wouldn't want to convict somebody just on that and be wrong or something, but it's something. It's another piece of the puzzle that, like, if they have suspicions about something, and you are giving them what seems like those are clues, they should include that basically and not dismiss it. So in their whole assessment of it, at least that's what I would do if it was me, investigating. But yeah, we'll talk with Danny about it, and we'll go on from there. But so it's been a great show, revisiting the.
Oh,
And, I'm glad to have Missy on. So everyone, we're going to wrap it up for our second show here, and we'll be back next week with Daniel Blake and Miss Bernadine telling us all about those true crimes and stuff. So we thank you for listening, and we hope that you'll join us again. Dean, you ready?
yes, I'm ready.
Ready. Dean's always ready.
Always ready.
And this has been the Supernatural Substation with Alyne Pustanio and my co-host Bernadine LeBlanc. And we hope that you will subscribe, like, share, and talk about our show. And oh, geez, I used LeBlanc,
Yeah,
but that's how I know you. I know you for
I'm
20
back
years.
at my maiden name. Yes,
I'm glad you would have hit me and you would have hurt me if you were here. I'm so sorry. I'll get
you'll get
used to
used of it. It took a
it.
while for me to get used of it.
I'm just gonna say Bernadine, and
Yeah,
then they can. If they want to know who you are, they can just look in the comments. So she's it's like she would hit me if I was here. So I mean, if she was here. But anyway, thank you for listening, and tune in again next week for another great guest. And I guess that wraps it up, Dean.
all righty. We'll
All
see
right,
you next week.
see you next week too. Talk to you in between. Good night, everyone. Thank
Night.
you.
Bye bye.